So today is the big day and Jaydeep has a challenge on his hands, one that will require him to dig deep into his past. Can he muster up the courage to relive the trials and tribulations of being a turban-wearing Sikh growing up in 80s and 90s Britain?
The turban isn't just a piece of cloth, you know. It was gifted to us through the ages. From our very first Sikh guru to the last, each has worn the turban with pride and the utmost importance. For 500 years, the turban has acted as a beacon of hope, an aid for help, and a deep connection to one's faith. And I'll be honest, I wasn't always confident about my hair and turban, especially when you've grown up hearing comments like, "You're a dying breed." I never discussed it much, I never opened up. I just assumed that the path would be followed, no questions asked. But when is the right time to let it out? Maybe now is that time. I used to have a white handkerchief on my top knot. There's pictures of me dotted around at my parents' house. There were mornings when Mum would do my jura and it'd be lopsided. I'll be walking to school, constantly shaking my head to see if I can move it into the middle. Sounds funny, right? I could hear the faint laughs of girls walking behind me. In class, I'll keep rocking my head from side to side with the teacher looking on ominously. My brown friends called me Helicopter. It was the petals from my top knot which looked like wings. That hurt more than the white kids who always asked me why I had a packed lunch on my head. Then there was the butka phase, but that didn't last long. I was deeply upset when someone called it a do-rag. Once on a school trip to France, the owner of the hostel told me not to go out. I remember his words as if they were yesterday. "You'd get beaten up looking like that." I questioned myself, but I held on a little longer. Dad could see I was not myself when comments at school started weighing in, but he knew I had some resistance in me, so decided that it was time that I wore a turban. He wore a starch one. You know, you tie it once, it turns rock hard, and you don't have to tie it fresh every day. They're not so common these days. That first time that Dad, he got really frustrated with me when he was tying my turban, because I wouldn't keep my head straight. The scariest part was that he had to iron the last lar, just firm it up. But he ironed it while I had my turban still on. Shit, I could feel the heat from the metal plate pierce through the material and touch my skin. It was standard practice if you wanted to get the right finish. I winced at the sharp pain and almost swore in anger. Dad didn't flinch. But that very first day I wore it, man, boy, I stood in the mirror, yeah, just looking for ages. Turning my head, checking myself out. Something inside of me felt different. I felt special. That feeling soon evaporated during the first days when the turban started cutting into my ears. That was bloody painful. It felt too loose as well. So I scrunched up bundles of tissues and stuffed them in the back, you know, just to tighten it up. While playing football at school, my turban came off. An accident, of course, but to see it with scrunched up tissue sprawled across the dry, warm grass made me feel uneasy and embarrassed. A couple of the kids from the other year, they started laughing. That pissed me off, but I didn't have the guts to confront them. I wiped the blades of grass off my starched turban, put it back on my head, and just got through the day. I felt loose all afternoon, and I couldn't get the sound of that laughter out of my head. I did well to hide the tears when Dad picked me up after school. Yes, I questioned myself, but I held on a little longer. Eventually, I told Dad about the football incident and how I was feeling. It felt like I had a shopping list of woes. I thought he might say, "Stick with the putka," but he was having none of it. Ex-army man, you see. He's not one to give up, and he wasn't going to let me have the easy option. It was 5 a.m. when Dad gave me a nudge to wake up. The alarm clock was my only source of light in the bedroom. He hadn't even put the bloody heating on, and the cold wrapped me tight the minute I got out of my warm bed. With eyes bulging and blinking furiously, I trudged to the bathroom. Well, I say bathroom, it was in front of the mirror in the upstairs toilet. Our bath was actually downstairs through the kitchen. We had 30 minutes before we had to leave for work, so we had to be sharp. This material was much softer. Dad circled around me as he tied it. I had to keep one end of it in my mouth tight so I wouldn't slip. Try talking with a turban cloth stuck in your mouth. He was totally focused because he didn't utter a word. Silence had engulfed the small space we both occupied. Whenever he would circle behind me, I would perform a quick check in the mirror. It felt better, tighter, more secure. As did I. Dad put a few pins in on the top, security, he said. But not before one pierced through the material and pricked my forehead. I still feel that sharp pain, and I'm always careful when I stick a few pins in myself. Had Dad not persisted, then I might have reverted back to the vodka. May have continued wearing it well into my teens and beyond. But I'm so glad that I didn't cave in after that football moment. For several weeks, I woke up at 5 a.m., had my turban tied and went back to bed, carefully sleeping on my side not to make it loose or to change the angle. I stayed sleeping in that position for another 2 hours at least. Eventually, I learned to tie it myself. But Dad taught me about looking after it. The washing, the drying, the ironing, the folding. Suddenly, I felt like my own person, a man responsible for my entire outlook. It was a real proud moment for me and my parents. I had transitioned from top knot to turban, from boy to man. Gosh, how I missed those early mornings and moments with my dad. I never seen him more concentrated than when he was tying my turban. It was like he was laying the foundation for me to leap off into my own identity. I turned 16 that year, and when I look back at it, it feels like he gave me this as a present, a gift for life. I cherish those moments even more when he passed away a few months after my birthday. Just as our connection through the turban was beginning to get strong. But I'm not bulletproof. Even I waver from time to time, becoming lazy. But there was always someone or something that reminded me of my identity. Like that girl during a summer job who saw me wearing a butler on the shop floor and said, "You seem half dressed today, JD. Not right without your turban." As soon as it was lunchtime, I went straight home, put my turban on, and came back to work. The world today has a much clearer picture of why we look the way we do. You see, son, the turban reminds us of our deep connection to our history. A history so proudly filled with stories of brave Sikh men and women who sacrificed their lives for the upkeep of the turban and its importance. And to respect those men and women who fought in 2 world wars without even asking for anything in return and maintaining the daily rituals of their appearance. But today is the biggest day of your life. We're about to partake in your turban tying ceremony and your step into adulthood. And now you've chosen this moment to question it. But just like my dad, I will be there with you every step of the way in your journey. The choosing of colours and with it all the preparation. And it'll be a learning curve for me too to tie it on my son. So I will need your guidance. It's your turban and it'll be your style, however you feel comfortable. You've listened to me patiently and I love you for that. It's a quality that will serve you so well in your life. So lock this thought in your heart and in your mind. Your turban is a crown gifted to us by our royal lineage, our Sikh gurus. Each meter, when wrapped around, wipes away our ego, and brings us closer to our faith. So tell me, son, why would a king or queen refuse to wear their crown?